Our topic this week is speech sound disorders, and this topic is very close to my job because I am a special education teacher, and within my caseload, I have several students who receive speech services. This affects my students in a positive way as far as their SLP providing their services and working towards their deficits in their speech. They get services normally about once a week to cover their minutes in their IEP for their speech disorder. And it's very helpful for my students, but I think it also has a negative effect in that when they get pulled out of their gen ed classroom by me and then again by another teacher, this makes the other students curious, and it makes them, ask questions and maybe start to notice that they have a difference. And while they do have a difference, the other students shouldn't be discussing that. That's not very appropriate. But it does happen. So, that is the negatives in speech. And also another negative I could think of is the referral process, and how the referral process is so laid back and there's no documentation required for a speech referral. Another thing is parental awareness. Most parents don't know what the speech disorders are or that it is really a speech disorder. They think most parents who are not in the education field or the speech pathology field, they wouldn't know that it was not something developmental. So that would be the negatives: the parental involvement, the parental knowledge about speech sound disorders, the pulling them out of class. And another one that I can think of is missed minutes, because our SLP does have an extremely high caseload. I think this past year it varied between 65 and 75, which is extensive. That is a enormous caseload, and honestly, it's just too much for one person, especially with the other responsibilities that she takes on with our school. She gets pulled to do different things often, with testing, with issues that are not speech related sometimes. So maybe her caseload being smaller would help out our students and ensure that they get their minutes each week. So if I was explaining this to someone who was not in education, or who was not a speech pathologist or in the school system at all, I would just explain to them that there is a referral process, and a parent can refer their kid to be tested for speech services, speech and language. And I would explain to them that process, and that, they have to get referred first, and then the SLP or a speech sound professional from the county, or even someone in the medical field, possibly at the doctor's office that is qualified to do that, can test them and basically go over the data and talk about what the disorder is and if they qualify for services. There are other things that go into it as well. There's teacher input, parent input, observations, data from the gen ed teacher if they're old enough. And I would just explain to them the process of how you refer, how you get tested, the different disorders that there are, and maybe how we do it specifically at our school. So a teacher would refer, or they would get a parent referral, and then they would let the SLP know. The SLP would do an informal eval, and then they would come back and do a formal eval, which we normally use the OWLS2 to test them for speech and language services, because that gives us a clear picture of what their needs are and where their deficits are, as far as speech and language. And then we would have a meeting and go over what they need and what we can provide for them. And that's it.